Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today, we are joined by Gael Breton from Authority Hacker. Now, Gael is a very popular figure in the online affiliate marketing and website building community. Him and his business partner, Mark Webster, run Authority Hacker, and there's so many topics that obviously we could talk with Gael about as it relates to what's going on in the world of SEO and of content creation and website building. But what we chose to focus on today is getting into the weeds on the helpful content update. Now, this was the one that was released in September of 2023. And now that we are 4 or 5 months out from it, the dust has settled a bit. We wanted to talk with someone who spends a lot of time with websites, especially in the spaces that the helpful content update seemed to greatly affect. And those are niche websites. So without further ado, I just want to go ahead and get into the interview with Gael. He brings a wealth of knowledge, both from a data standpoint, but we also talk a lot about the specifics of what we're affected and what we can do going forward. I think that you'll really enjoy this as a great episode to start off the new year, to set the tone for 2024, where we go as website owners and operators, and what we need to do to win online going forward. I hope you enjoy. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
This campaign got us big links in websites such as Lifehacker, Wales Online, Daily Record, and about 20 other news websites. Let me show you how we've done it. We knew that people will be flying a lot this summer, and we knew that journalists will be writing about this topic a lot. So, on behalf of our client, we put together a nice guide about how to fall asleep on the plane. Then we use MuckRack to find journalists who write about travel. Then we put our advice in a nice email and send the tips to the journalists. Within just a few days, the links started landing, securing our client natural placements in really big websites, just like this, and this. This is a great example about how you can leverage seasonal trends to earn links to a website. Anticipate what journalists want to write about at all times and give them the stories that they need. They will reward you with some great, juicy links. I hope this is helpful. If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today we are joined by Gael Breton with Authority Hacker. Gael, welcome on board.
Well, thanks for having me. I was on this podcast like years and years and years ago, but it's been a long time I dropped by, so I'm always happy to be here. And I just wanted to say you're doing a pretty good job with the podcast. I listen to it regularly, and I quite enjoy it, actually.
Well, I'll throw it right back at you. I've told Spencer this before, but you know, over the years and years and years, the two podcasts I would routinely listen to week in and week out are Authority Hacker and Niche Pursuits. So you and Mark were foundational in so much of what I've learned about online marketing over the last, I don't know how long you've been doing it for. I was going to say decade because that's how long this podcast has been, like 12 or 13 years.
7, 8 years maybe, something like this. 8? So yeah.
Man, I've gotten a lot of value from you guys. It's an honor to have you guys on. Last time it was you and Mark. I think this time it's just you today. So we're just going to have just the Gael special.
Yeah, let's do that. Mark's just already on, we're shooting these before Christmas, right? So Mark's already on Christmas break, and that's why I'm the only one keeping the lights on.
Yep, you're the only one there. Well, it's okay. I feel pretty comfortable with just you. We're going to talk a lot today about, we were saying before we start recording, we're going to talk about the helpful content update. As we go in now to 2024, when this podcast is being released, I won't overbury the lead on it. It's on everyone's mind to some degree, and everyone in some way has been impacted. So that's what we're going to dive into. I'm going to guess the vast majority of people know who you are and about Authority Hacker. But if you could, just for the 1 or 2 people listening that kind of don't know your background, just catch us up really briefly on yourself.
Yeah, really quickly. I've told that story a million times, but basically we run an agency with my business partner, Mark, for about 4 years, we had 35 staff. We used to be the kind of like the back office to a lot of bigger agencies in, like we were in Budapest, and we were the back office of a bunch of agencies like Australia, London, etc. We worked for big brands. I did work for Macy's, 99 Designs, Flipper, Nigel Lawson, Expedia. Like we've done a bunch of work on big brands basically, and that. Usually the agencies would just throw the stuff at us that they couldn't handle themselves. So that used to be the most difficult stuff. We were just that back office. And so it made us quite creative on the way we approach SEO. But eventually we got a little bit tired of client work. It's like if we did too good, we got fired because they didn't need traffic anymore, or like they didn't need to grow anymore. If we did bad, which happened as well, we also got fired. So we felt like it's like you were incentivized to be mediocre forever. And it wasn't very fun to us. And so we started building our own sites with the profits of the agency. That went pretty well. We built a couple, then people started asking us how we do things, etc. And, at that time there was like black hat, white hat, but like no, like white hat was like big agencies, people with big budget, and then black hat would be like people on Wicked Fire and Black Hat World, basically. And we wanted to be these kind of like practical, as close to white hat as possible, but open-minded, let's just say, like on buying links and things like that, etc. in terms of like being realistic. So we kind of like filled that gap in the market, talking to like smaller publishers. Spencer was there too, but it's like, it was basically us, Spencer, maybe Matthew Woodwards at the time. And then Authority Hacker, eventually, as people asked us more and more content, we started making courses. The first course was like 5 videos. Today we have more than 600 videos in the area. So there's a lot, and we constantly update that. So like, while I'm not as active on YouTube as many people, I'm pretty sure I shoot more videos than most people that you find on YouTube, except most of our stuff is found behind the paywall, basically, and comes out as courses and so on. So Authority Hacker now is pretty much a training company. That's most of our income. We do make affiliate revenue as well. We do SEO, we do all of that, etc. We do all of the stuff that you know about. But the way we monetize is mostly selling courses, and we have a cool community. We have masterminds, we have all of that, and we have a podcast that is, I would say, quite similar to what you guys do at Niche Pursuits as well.
Podcast is great. I think you guys are up to. We've gone for this year we added a second podcast to cover the news. You guys, I think, are every other week now, right? Is that the podcast?
Yeah. Okay. So I was telling you before the call, like, I don't like to talk when I have nothing to say. It's like, it's not my personality. Like, I see a lot of people like shouting a lot on social media right now, just like being all over and putting a lot of content out there. I like to like be quite precise and have some value to add. And if I have nothing to say, I'll just shut up, and like weekly podcasts with just Mark and I felt like a little bit too much. We started doing more guests now. It's like I'm trying to do guests, but like kind of like debates with people rather than like, what's your life story? It's like, I feel like it's like I'm trying new things. I'm trying to new spins on the interviews and not just the classic podcast interviews, and having fun with it. And that was a lot of fun. Now with the interviews, I may be considering going back once a week, but like, yeah, I think once every 2 weeks has been good for us in terms of like adding more value to people's time with less time taken from them, basically.
Yep. Yeah, it's a delicate balance. I can tell you that from experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, especially when it's just Mark and I, it's just the two same people.
Yeah.
Like eventually, like you don't want to be like that person that repeats the same story for the 1000th time,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, like, people ask, like, I was just telling you, I've recorded a lot of podcasts this week, and it's from a taxing standpoint, from like just talking a lot. It's one thing, but the Niche Pursuits podcast, every Wednesday, we just release interviews. And so really the star of the show is the guest. You and Mark are the ones doing all the content for the most part. So it's a much different amount of work.
It's a lot of prep, actually. Like, it's a lot of notes and a lot of prep. Like a podcast episode is maybe 2 to 5 hours of preps quite often, actually. So, yeah.
Well, it's good for people to know the behind the scenes. What they probably want to hear about, though, is our topic of the day, which is the helpful content update. So just a quick overview. Again, if you've been living under a rock in the digital marketing world for the last 4 or 5 months, mid-September, the helpful content update rolled out. It was not the first rollout of it. It rolled out for the first time, actually, about a year prior to that. August, September of 2022.
It wasn't that impactful at the time, right?
No,
It's like it was a bit scary. Like the way they worded it was scary, and everyone was like super scared. Then it rolled out. It was like, oh, that's it.
Remember the buildup? Like people were like deleting massive amounts of content 3 days prior to it being rolled out. I think it was the first pre-announced rollout they've ever done, if I remember correctly. And we were all like, what the heck? This must be big if they're telling us they're going to have an update.
People got scared.
Yeah, people got scared. And then it amounted to nothing, so we didn't pay attention. And then this one happened. And it turned out that maybe this was the one they were anticipating a year ago, because this one was big and it was landscape shifting. I mean, we're going to talk today about it from the lens of affiliate marketers, content creators. I know a lot of people listening will maybe have an e-commerce brand that saw very different impacts from the helpful content update, but certainly people with, and I'll just say it from the outset, people with the classic quote unquote niche site saw massive impacts. And so we're going to just kind of wade into that today.
Yeah, and most people saw a negative impact, right? It's like clearly that wasn't something that was positive, etc. But I think you're categorizing HCU, like you're saying HCU, but really a lot is happening on Google right now. It's not just HCU, right? There's been 3 core updates together with that one. There's been a spam update. There's been the last ever product review update as well, that they said it's the last time they announced it. So now it's going to be part of core algorithm updates, basically. It's going to be baked in. So you will understand even less what's going on. And so like a lot has changed, and a lot of people got hit by the core updates too, actually. Like maybe not individually. Each update was not nearly as impactful as the HCU, but like if you add up all the 3 that rolled out consecutively, I would say a lot of people who complain about losing traffic recently have been affected by these updates quite a bit as well. And so I think what we're really talking about is what happened on Google in the last 6 months, you know?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so you had an August core update, a September HCU, an October core update, a November core update,
and
a reviews update, and a spam update. I mean, that's at least 5 updates within the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, and then they were really long as well, so they were heavy. Like they were the longest they've ever been. Like some took over months to roll out, which had never been seen before. You know, usually it was like 10 days to 2 weeks, something like this. So this is quite interesting. It's like you're wondering whether it's like, are they doing more processing on one side? Like, are they doing more work per page they're analyzing? Or is the index that much bigger due to AI spam, basically? Yep. It's like it's hard to tell. Probably a little bit of both, right? It's like HCU particularly, and potentially product review update, etc. My guess is they're applying recent breakthroughs in AI to ranking factors. Basically, they're trying to have. Imagine like AI pretends to be a quality rater and tries to rate your page. Maybe not all your pages, maybe a sample of the pages on your site, attribute a score to them, and then based on that, you get a ranking multiplier on your rankings, basically. And then they've prompted the LLM against, I don't know what the prompt is, but they've given it some criteria to look for, and they think it's good enough. So something like that's probably happening. Like it's so coincidental, all these updates just together with like the changes in AI, etc., and them also building like Palm 2. It's probably based on Palm 2, these updates, but now they release Gemini as well. They have Gemini Pro in Bard. Gemini Ultra is coming next year. And so there's something to do with AI probably behind the scenes, and that's how I anticipated Google will use AI, is to make it ranking factors and basically pretend to be a human quality rater and evaluate websites to try to understand content. Problem is we know AI hallucinates a lot and makes a lot of mistakes. We see that as well in Google results right now. For example, you get a lot of like for example, I was checking this tweet from Travel Lemming, right? TravelLemming.com is a really, really good travel site that lost a lot of traffic recently. And it's like an example of a great site that definitely should not lose traffic, is high quality. People should check it out. And it's they lost a lot of traffic, but they didn't just lose traffic from losing positions. They lost traffic due to Google popping features on the top of the SERPs. So for example, when you were looking for things to do in Seattle, like Google took essentially all the items of the list post and showed all these items above them, so less people click on the results. So it's like even if you rank high, and I've seen that a lot with these updates, where it's the structure of the SERP that has changed rather than even the rankings sometimes, where there's just a lot more people also ask, a lot of new widgets, all of that, etc. And that you might check your rank tracker, you're like, I'm number one, and then you check your webmaster's console and you're like, oh shit, my traffic's down 25% or something. It happened to us as well on Toy Hacker. Like, we have a lot of listicles, and then Google's taking these list items and just making the list on Google, for example. So yeah, it's like something like that's happening right now. Obviously, there's a big problem with spam right now on Google, like a really, 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 really big problem. It's the worst I've seen it in years. And I think Google's aware, because you know how Google's aware of the problem is the tone Danny Sullivan takes on Twitter when he replies to people. It's like when he's arrogant, then they probably think you're wrong, and they just like niche site owners are trying to just make as much money as possible. When they're trying to understand the problem and actually they're trying to talk to you and ask questions, etc., and say they're going to report it to the search team, etc., there's a problem. And that's exactly the tone they're having right now on Twitter. So clearly, they understand that there's a big problem with the Parasite SEO, especially. Like, now, Parasite SEO is insane. I've found pages on the Heart Association, like heart.org, like ranking for CBD gummy keywords. Google Translate pages are ranking for illegal porn keywords right now. Like really illegal stuff. Like, I'm not even going to say on the podcast, but like, think about the most horrible stuff you can think about in porn. Google Translates ranks for that right now. Like, people done that with Google Groups, etc. Harvard has been hacked as well, etc. Like,
we talked about Harvard in the news last week. Exactly.
Spammers are finding ways. Basically, like, Google has punished small sites, and they're like, fine, we'll just bribe our way through bigger sites, and then they're just basically ranking. And then Google potentially, and I think that gives us a hint. Like, if Parasite SEO works so well, is like they've probably given way too much weight to like domain authority and the authority of the domain in general, right? It's kind of like a byproduct of that. Is and as a result, like, people realize, oh, this is that easy, This reminds me of my early days in SEO. We used to rank what we called Web 2.0 pages. So that would be like pages on Squidoo.com and things like that, and then spam them with SEO.
Little Weebly page.
Yeah, exactly. Then you do a bunch of social bookmarking to it, and it would just rank, right? And so clearly, that's going to be a sign that Google's going to have to address, like, maybe like evaluate sites based on subfolders and subdomains, etc., something like this. Like, maybe the core of the site is going to just rank the same. So I can't imagine them taking too much traffic away from the big sites. Like, let's not hope too much. But at the same time, I think the subfolders, the subdomains, etc., if they are being abused, I think they might actually be be evaluated like separately from the main domain, or lose quite a bit of authority from the main domain, basically.
So with everything you just went through, I mean, you like just took us through like a year of Google and all the challenges right now, from Parasite SEO, from spam rankings, from, you're right, a much broader
topic. We didn't even talk about UGC yet.
No, and it's on my list to talk about UGC, but I don't want to. There's already so much to touch on there. Like, does, from a very high level, and you can choose to go with this any way you want, does Google have it out for a classic niche site?
I don't think. I mean, I think they might have had before all of this, and now they're like looking at where they landed, and they might change their mind. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see some head rollings at the top of Google right now, to be honest. Like, just for the situation they put themselves in. It's their main cash cow search. Like, it doesn't matter. AI, etc., doesn't make them any money. The cloud business makes some money, and then the rest is just the advertising business, and it's largely driven by search, and YouTube's pretty strong as well right now. But that's where the money is coming from. So it's like, no, I don't think so. The problem is, here's my main gripe with Google, is that they invented search intent a long time ago now, a couple of years ago. I mean, like, really, when I started SEO, it was all backlinks, right? So you could write anything about whatever you wanted for an article, and if you managed to get links to the article, you would rank. Then the problem is, 2016 election, fake news became a big thing. Google had to start fighting fake news and started being liable for ranking essentially fake information against big keywords. So that's when the Medicaid update came up, etc., and that's when search intent became really, 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 really strong. The problem with search intent is that it trained SEOs to write samey content. Like, you wanted to rank on Google, you looked at the top pages, and then you did something quite similar, and then you had tools like Surfer or Page Optimizer Pro, etc., that essentially helped you optimize for that. And so for years, we've all been writing the same content. We've been copying each other, doing the same stuff. And to be frank, as a user, it's not very fun to read this content. It's pretty shit, right? So most of the sites that we've built, most of the sites that have tanked with these updates have been built on this model, basically. They're all like revamped on this model. And I think Google has started to tune off search intent and rely a little bit more on user metrics. And then, well, nobody, like when you're on your phone, when I'm on a 16 screen on my phone, I don't want to read a 3,000 word poorly formatted article with just H2s and paragraphs. It's very boring. Like there's no way. I'll go on TikTok and I'll just search for that instead, you know? And so Google, I think, is actually, and I've seen some glimmers of hope here because I've seen some niche sites, and I'll give you some examples in a bit if you want, that are not high authority, that are one-man band and have been growing, you know, triple, quadruple, sometimes 1,000% traffic this year by not doing what the rest of the SEO industry has been doing in terms of creating content. It's almost like we're kind of regressing back to another way of creating content. And the problem is, well, we've all been, Google has trained us and rewarded us. We're kind of like dogs you're trying to train, you know. It's like you do the search intent article, they give you a treat. Bam, here's some traffic. Do the perfect search intent article, here's some traffic. And then Google turns around and then everyone's like, nah, you guys should write for people, etc. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you've told us for years. I mean, you've rewarded for years not doing that. You've rewarded for years, like doing. And so that's the problem we're facing now. It's like we have entire websites built on this model that are now essentially Google's like, actually, that's not the best way to make content. They finally realized that, and they're moving on. And so let me give you some example of sites that have grown a lot that, I don't know, can I share my screen here or?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, let me just open it up quickly. And then I'll show you like an example. I open an Ahrefs.
I love when we have another podcast host as a guest. You're like, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here.
It's like, I'm not allowed to show you.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, for years, it was, if it's a listicle that ranks in Google, you have to write a listicle to rank. If you decide,
but not just that, like you have to write it with the same items and everything. Like you have to do that.
If you don't mention in your product review one of the brands that everybody else mentions because you don't think it's good, maybe you think that brand isn't good. If you don't at least mention it and talk about it, you won't rank. And so it's this fascinating juxtaposition that it's like, if I want to give an honest product review and I don't like this product, I want to talk about it. But if the top 10 results in Google currently have that, I have to put it in there, or else the way that search intent is designed will keep me out because of that reason alone.
And the way they fight fake news is through consensus as well. So if 10 affiliates say the product is great, even though it may be shit, if you say it's shit, you don't rank, you know, because you don't match the consensus. So it's like, it's a big problem. So this site, I like this site. This site is like, it's DR 23. We're not talking about big DR, right? This is a guy that has a YouTube channel and then just reviews flights when he flies. By the way, he has a blog roll on the homepage. I remember when HCU came out and it was like, the blog roll on the homepage. Like, but look at how he writes his content. I mean, it's literally, I call it a comic book, you know?
Yeah.
Do you see like this content, right? And now let's look at his Ahrefs. That's his traffic this year. He started the year, I mean, let's put 1 year, not 2 years. He started the year at 56K traffic, and he's doubled his traffic this year through the updates, basically. And he doesn't write like SEO content at all. He writes like comic books, first-hand experience, EEAT, all that stuff. And then it's easy to read. Like it's TikTokable. You know what I mean? It's like I'm scrolling and I'm just going through, I'm just reading these things and I'm getting the whole story thing, basically.
And that's one example. For those who are just listening and not watching, it's very much just single sentence, lots of pictures, extremely obvious that this person is taking photos as they go about their travels and not trying to write an optimized article.
Exactly. I want to show you another one that I have interviewed on our podcast, and that is naplab.com. Naplab is a classic affiliate site and he's DR 40. So we're not talking about big site as well. the mattress affiliate niche is one of the most competitive niches out there. Like it's very competitive because it pays a lot of money. When you make a sale, you can make sometimes $300-$400 per sale, right? Look at how he writes his reviews. Like, first of all, everything, like, you know, you get your answer right on top of the page. I don't really have to read much. And all of his paragraphs are never more than like 4 lines, ever. Mm-hmm. And everything is fully visual, right? Like, this is not written like an SEO article either. Like, you know, an SEO article would be much more wordy. There would be a long intro, long outro. There would be like, they wouldn't make it as visual. You see what I mean? Like, it's not an experience. It's just a wall of text most of the time. And he's tested that, obviously. You can see how heavily he's testing this. He has this quantitative scoring system. Like, you can see on top of the page, let me just go back up. He has, like, you know, for cooling, 9.5, motion transfer, 10, etc. And he wrote a whole system to, like, essentially test every mattress. Now, let's look at this site. Let me just grab the homepage on Ahrefs. This site started the year at 6,200 traffic and finished the year at 132,000 traffic. That's a 2,300% growth. And you can see every time one of these updates rolls out, he's just fucking going up. It's like every single time. And so it's a different way. I'm going to stop sharing. One sec, coming back. So, like, yeah, it's like I'm actually going to share some more. Like, we have a newsletter coming out. And I'm going to share some more. But, like, yeah, it's like the sites that you see winning in these updates, they don't match the archetype of the classic niche site, basically. They went, like, so it's funny because, like, on one side, Google has all these spam problems, etc. I'm not taking that. I'm not saying Google's great. Like, they have big problems they need to solve with AI spam as well. I can show you AI spam domains as well if you want, like, that just publish straight up AI content and are going up, etc. But usually these things with time resolve themselves. Like, it's like, it has happened before that Google had bad periods, and it's like, yeah, it might take 6 months, it might take a little bit longer, but eventually these things sort themselves out. And it's rare to find a spam domain that has been around for 5 years. Like, it doesn't really happen, right? It goes up and it just crashes. But what I'm starting to find is these kind of, like, I guess they call it hidden gem websites.
Yes, the hidden gem term.
I guess that's what they call it. Actually being rewarded for not following any SEO principles, almost, like, for kind of like first of all, making the site an experience. So there's always, like, a lot of visuals, etc. It's not just text. Basically, text is the laziest way to pass information to people. It's also the least authentic one. It's the one you can fake the most. Mm-hmm. And then they write. The pages tend to be shorter, and they're just much more fun to read. Like, I actually bought products based on NavLab because I thought it was a good site, for example. And so I think we might need to rewrite the handbook on writing SEO content.
That's at least what I was about to ask. Yeah,
for affiliate reviews, etc. And it's so, like, it took me a long time to kind of, like, come to that realization, because it's like there's not, like, very few people build sites like that. So it's, even though these people are seeing a big gain in visibility. I can show you another one, by the way. There's another site called shavercheck.com. I'm not going to open it this time, but you check it out. It's basically a single guy from Romania as one person, so small affiliate site. He ranks for best shaver, for example. Best electric shaver, I think he's number 2. Number 1 and 2 fighting with New York Times, with a wire cut. And he's DR 29. So, like, these are exact keywords. You guys can go check it out. And he went up 233% this year. He went from 62K traffic to 145K traffic. So pretty good. But yeah, it's like, I think we're going to have to rewrite the book on, like, making a site. I think the age of making, you know, a shitty review site where you never touch the product, never see it, don't care, this might come to an end, to be honest. But I think there is big efficiencies that still exist on this market. If you're just thinking in terms of building a website, it doesn't look as appealing, because obviously it's more work, more money, more effort. But there are other opportunities. So, I mean, YouTube is one of them. If you're getting your hands on the product, like, you should have a YouTube channel. It's kind of crazy not to make a YouTube video if you're actually going through this level of effort to build your site. but also you guys are doing the Amazon influencer program, right?
Yep.
And so why not combine these two things to build your website, for example? And it's like essentially build up these multiple traffic. Like it takes more effort, it takes more money to create a piece of content, and it's going to require first-hand experience because it looks like that's how the small sites can win today. And I have multiple examples of that. But on the other side, you are building YouTube channels, income from Amazon through the Amazon influencer program. And then you can also compete with big sites without necessarily having too much DR. These sites I shared, like, SenseSpotter was DR23, ShaverCheck is DR29, and AppLab is DR40. You don't need to necessarily like spend as much money on links or anything. I'm not saying you don't need links, that they do have some links. But to me, it's pretty low DR. Like DR29 is like, that's where a site would be after 1 year that when I started working on it, for example,
I want to double down on the analogy you gave, whether you meant to or not. I think you did, so I'll double down on it. You said like we got ourselves into this when Google launched search intent. And so everyone listening who got slapped around in some of these updates, maybe feel a little bit forgiven because you have in many ways followed the model that's been working for the last 7 years. And
it's Google's fault.
Yeah, they moved the goalpost in essence, right? Like they changed the rules, right? Like we were operating on, you need goals to win, and now it's like you need a different metric to win. And so for many of us, and I'll put myself in that list, we've been doing it this way for so long, it's difficult to unlearn what we've learned.
Exactly. And that's why it took me some time to like take some distance from the SEO community because I feel the way we're looking at the problem might just be wrong completely, there are counter examples, right? It's like Travel Lemming, for example, the site I shared earlier. It's a great site. It still lost a lot of traffic. Another site that people take an example of would be like Retro Dodo, for example. Retro Dodo is a retro gaming site, and but they really test the products, etc., and it's pretty good. But at the same time, like I was preparing for you to like counter argument with this basically, and so I went through Retro Dodo, for example, and it's like while they do the hands-on experience, they do all of that, etc., and I believe their content is authentic, they're still following the kind of like classic SEO post formats, etc., and it's still very wordy, and it's still not necessarily like they learned SEO basically. It's almost like it might even shoot them in the foot in that way, because they still match these formats, despite the fact that they are more authentic than most affiliate sites, and despite the fact that they have original images, etc. It's like the way it's written, the way it's put together, the structure of the article with the headlines of like having the top 10 products and having a buying guide and having all of that, etc. Might actually be hurting. I don't know where Google draws the line. It's hard to tell,
That's we had Brandon on the podcast 1.5 years, 2 years ago, whatever it was, and that's kind of my point. This is you basically perfectly walked into it. I'm worried that let's say I'm somebody listening and I'm like, okay, cool. I got it. I got to be all in on my niche. I got to be all in. I got to start testing the products. I got to start using the products. Let's say that I flip that switch in 2024. I'm still concerned that I'll be.
I would still be concerned. Yeah.
That won't rank because how do I unlearn what I've already known? Even if I do all the things right, per se, what's ranking seems to be still such a vast departure. And it's almost like, do I have to unoptimize my content after I'm done writing it in my typical way? So
it's like we're kind of going through that. So we got quite lucky in terms of timing because we sold a bunch of projects like at the end of the first half of last year. So honestly, didn't plan on this, but got quite lucky. And we kind of we focused on rebuilding the editorial team for Authority Hacker, which was a little bit in shambles, to be honest. And so it's like, it's something that we're going through right now. Basically, we're like, oh, we wrote something, it doesn't rank. What do we do? It's like, what's the plan? And it's like, honestly, now I'm just opening the post on WordPress. I'm just breaking it. I'm just like, I don't care. This page doesn't rank, right? Let's just like I use AI quite a bit to help me rewrite stuff, for example. So it's like, I'm not going to have AI write the content because I think it's not very good, to be honest, AI content at this point. But it's very good at like rewarding things, making things more concise, changing their tone, etc. Like doing this kind of like junior editor job on existing content. And so I often have it kind of like reformulate stuff, like take 3 big paragraphs and transform it into one small one, etc. Like add like a shit ton of screenshots on the page, and basically that's what we're doing. We're just basically writing down an assumption. We're like, this page doesn't rank. What if I made it more like this idea of a comic book page is a very big one we have internally, where we want like people don't read, basically we want people to basically understand the story with just headlines and screenshots. And it's like forget, they don't read the normal size text. They don't do that. Same as sales pages, right? That's how we build sales pages. And so like our editorial team knows about that comic book idea, and so we do that, for example. And so like very much like this SenseSpotter website.
Hey, just a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Just a quick reminder that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Now, I've got a short clip from Ferry with Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
We got 20 links and placements on massive websites such as The Express, Mirror, Daily Record, and many more, with a campaign about the pros and cons of popular diets. How about? This is exactly how we've done it. Our client is a very popular fitness client. We have asked them to provide thorough expert commentary about the pros and cons of the most popular diets. Once we have this information, we put this in a nice email and send it out to 15,000 journalists from around the world that write about fitness. So good. And unhealthy. Big publications picked up our story from the email, giving our client massive, juicy, saucy, healthy links that are 100% relevant to their website and that will keep the rankings of the website in a great shape. You see what I've done there? I hope this case study inspires and that you will start leveraging expert commentary type campaigns to land links to your or your client's website, just like we've done it with this campaign.
Like what you just heard and are looking for similar link building PR campaigns for your website? Just go to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today. You have the comic book effect, and my question on that is, I mean, going back to maybe the algorithm or just in terms of going forward, how important are user experience metrics going to be, do you think? Like, is it important that people scroll through your content and stay engaged? Or is it, because previously that wasn't that important. Previously, it's like get the right words in the right spots on the right pages, make it the right length, make sure it has all the components, internally link it together so Google can crawl around easier and understand what each page is about from the anchor text. It's all those things. Is it now more like, man, if they don't make it all the way down your page consistently and they start bouncing the time on site, all these user metrics we talk about, like, is that increasing in importance?
I mean, this is just speculation at this point. Like, I don't have hard data to say that. The only hard data I have is that out of the Google antitrust trial, a lot of stuff came out about Google using a lot more user metrics than they've said before. I would be very surprised if they did not use Chrome data and Android data. To me, that's enough data to kind of like evaluate pretty much any site. And, for example, when every month you get this report from Search Console that tells you about your top rising content, etc., etc. They give you the time on site, right? Like they say, high time on page, etc. Where do they get that data from? You don't put any code on your site with Search Console, and they're not supposed to use analytics, right? So to me, that's kind of an
right. It's analytics code that goes on there.
They shouldn't use that data. So GSC should not collect. Like, if they did not, the only thing they can probably do is measure the time between people going to your site and going back to the SERP. But if they don't go back to a SERP, how would they measure that?
Right.
So to me, that's kind of like, I'm like, where is that coming from? Isn't that from Chrome and Android, basically? And so if they're using it there and they're showing it to you in GSC, it's probably quite important. This is more like the assumption that we run internally. And it's like, we don't have to be right. We just have to rank under that assumption. It's like, it might be something else, but I don't really care if I'm right or wrong. I just care about having the right mental framework for the team, right? That's something that we very, very much care about internally. And one thing that I want to say is like a lot of people kind of blame the difference between, big publishers and small niche sites on links and authority, right? But one thing that big publishers consistently do a million times better than small sites is mobile experience, for example. The way the site looks on mobile, like, I'm sorry, if you run media buying on AdThrive on default setting, half of your screen is ads at any time. It's shit. It's bad experience. Yep. If I'm a user and I land on this page, it's bad. I understand you make money. I understand it has high RPM. I say it's very nice. You make a bunch of money, etc. But if I'm a user, I'm basically thinking, like, if I'm not in SEO, I think I'm on a malware website, basically. And big brands don't do that. They use ads, but not to that degree. They use it smartly. They think about their placement. Elements are much more responsive and work better on mobile. They don't you don't have your table shrinking all and you can't read anything, or it goes off the screen. You start having horizontal scrolling on your page because you have one element.
The scroll bar. Yeah.
And so it's done better. And Google finished their transition to mobile first index in October, right? It took 6 years, I think, for them to be mobile first. But most people build their websites on a computer. It looks decent on their computer, but most of your traffic's mobile. And niche sites, people don't spend enough time on UX and mobile in general. So there's kind of two ways to go about this. It's either you have a very simple site, so like this SenseSpotter site I showed you doesn't have an amazing UX, but because it's so simple, it's like single column, whatever, it works on mobile. But as soon as you start having comparison tables, as soon as you start having widgets that promote products, etc., and it's not done well, then in my opinion, that can affect your user metrics quite significantly. And that might be a differentiator between the big publishers that have full-time developers making the site good and the small sites that DIY it and or use pre-made themes and it's not done very well. And that might be a bigger differentiator than people think, that they kind of attribute to links,
That's a good point. Yeah, and it's how often are we guilty of not looking at our own sites on mobile for months and months on end, right? Like, you just don't think about it.
And the walls of text on mobile, they're like so much worse. Like, it's like you scroll screens and screens and screens without a single image or anything. Is just like, it's boring. Like, it's awful. Terrible.
No, it's funny you mentioned it. I was actually at a Christmas party a couple weeks ago, and somebody was asking, they're like, "Oh, hey, Jared, what are you doing now?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I run a marketing agency." They're like, "Oh, cool. What's it called?" And they had their phone out and they look up my website. Now, we don't even have ads on Tool and Creative. It's just, and I'm like looking over their shoulder. I'm like, oh my gosh, like the page they were on had 3 elements across the page on desktop, and it didn't stack vertically on mobile. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't checked that page. That's one of our sales pages, and it's like, reminds me, like, I made that page back in the summer, and I haven't gone and checked it on mobile.
Yeah, so like, for example, one thing that we do is the aspect ratio of the images we use on our site, right? It basically never use horizontal images. Why? Because they shrink on mobile and you can't see anything. You need to have a square aspect ratio or a tall aspect ratio, because that way, when they get on mobile, they become much more visible because the viewport of your phone is vertical,
Yep.
And so like a lot of little rules like that. Sometimes we do the images twice even. Like, we'll make like images for desktop that are wide, and then on mobile they will have a different version of the image that stacks up vertically, actually. So like a lot of these little things, I'm not saying you're going to rank number one by doing this.
Yes.
And I'm just saying that they kind of compound. It's these 0.1% optimization things, but like these big sites, they all do this pretty well. I mean, people shit on Forbes all the time, but Forbes is great on mobile.
I agree. We've talked about user experience. So let me now ask another question, another high-level topic. A lot of, again, I have to use air quotes now. I feel weird, but I just have to. So a lot of niche website owners will love the model of publishing to the web and not having to do social media, right? And so a lot of the conversation around the HCU is build a brand. You need to have social media traffic. You need to have linking out to social media profiles that have activity and have engagement. And a lot of website builders that listen to this podcast are like, do I have to? I don't want to. I don't want to do video, but I don't even want to do Facebook groups. And so how important do you think going forward we have to pay attention to having social media components to our websites now?
I'm not sure if this is the social. I mean, in my opinion, if you're a search engine, it's quite hard to rely on third-party data from social networks. It's like it would either like they would charge Google, like Google's like one of the richest company in the world. They won't give it for free, or they just straight up won't let them have it. They get some, right? It's like the LinkedIn profiles, for example. They do crawl like who your followers are. They get the follow account now. They show that, etc. But in my opinion, it's more like the search behavior around your brand terms that matters. So like how many people search for your brand. The click-through rate for branded terms, that kind of stuff. That, in my opinion, matters a lot. Like the sites that we have that have the most branded search are the ones that get the least amount of swing from updates. But it doesn't necessarily have to be social media. Imagine you do a great newsletter, for example. Like it might trigger. It might trigger that. It might trigger a branded search. Joining a podcast, like maybe people are going to Google Authority Hacker after this podcast, right? Even if I had no so active social profile, that would be helpful. Now, the problem with social media is that I think EEAT relies quite a bit on these kind of like entities, social profiles, etc. So like when you register your knowledge panel, for example, so I have a knowledge panel, I went through the registration experience where you actually have to give your social profiles and everything, and they use that to complete that actually. And you use these same as schema properties in order to basically link all the places where you walk on the web. So that's going to be your social media profiles, but also your author pages on other sites, etc. So Google kind of like understands it's the same person. And so having online presence is pretty healthy if you're a web publisher in general. It's weird not to be anywhere else. And this idea of like I'm not sharing my identity, etc. Like it's not going to fly on the internet anymore. Not if you want visibility, at least. I think it's like you're going to have to, and it makes sense, right? It's like essentially Google exposes themselves, like they're liable if they push your content forward and you hurt someone. And so like I think it kind of makes sense that the more visibility you get, the more transparent you need to be about who you are, at least. You don't necessarily have to be a big social media mogul or something like this, but like, yeah, showing who you are, who you like, what you've done online, if you have a degree at university, if you have like a work page profile that is related to what you do, if you have contributed in other places, etc. That's like, how can we give you any credibility if we don't know who you are? And so it's this idea of like anonymity. It's interesting because they talk about it in the search rater guidelines. Actually, they actually say you can build that up as a persona, as a pen name, but you need to build a reputation as that pen name. So it's like, for example, Matt Diggity is not Matt Diggity. It's not his real name, but he's built a reputation as Matt Diggity. People will search for him. He has social media profiles under that name, etc., etc. And so that allowed him to preserve his name while at the same time, building that credibility and sharing an identity online that we know who's behind the content, basically. And so that's an opportunity for people to do that if they don't want to share their family name and things like that, but they will need to open up a little bit. And it's like, when we're talking about first-hand experience, it's kind of weird to talk about your first-hand experience and not show who you are, basically. The one case where I would potentially consider it is like we used to be in the VPN niche a long time ago. Basically, we had a big VPN site that we sold. And in the privacy niche, it kind of makes sense not to share your identity. Same way, like no way people are going to give you their email to join your email list, right? It's like this is the opposite of the idea of privacy. And so like in some niches it might make sense, but that's literally like 1% of niches,
I mean, man, a lot of what you're saying harkens back to when we had Kyle Roof on the podcast. You had him on your podcast as well.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying something. I just want to see if like maybe this helps bring it back full circle. He was saying like, Google's not in the business of trying to figure out if your degree from Harvard or whatever Penn is better or worse. It's just in the business of trying to figure out like, are you a legitimate person? Is there a legitimate person behind this brand? Can we trust this brand? And so perhaps going back to the social media conversation, perhaps social media has an importance, but only in the larger scheme of helping Google see that there's real people behind the website, that they can trust it, in the vein of where we're going with all this?
It's more like social media allows you to build relationships with real people that then lend you credibility. Like it's kind of like a two-side effect thing. So it's like, for example, we talked on Twitter and now I'm on this podcast.
Yep.
That's a perfect example of how like social media is not going to help Authority Hacker rank higher in this case. It's just that through appearing on this podcast, maybe that's going to drive some brand searches, and then like it's going to just build up the metrics around me because some people are listening and then they check it out. And so like it doesn't like not everything you do in SEO has to have a direct effect on your rankings. I think people are a little bit too narrow-minded on this. It's like Google's trying to kind of like understand the bigger picture here. And it's like you kind of have a chain of events that eventually will lead to an increase in rankings, but it doesn't have to be what you did doesn't have to be the cause of it,
UGC, you teased it. You're like, we haven't even talked about UGC. Well, now
yeah.
Let's talk about.
Let's talk about it.
I guess at the high level, like, I guess what I'd like to hear from you is, do we care or do we wait and hope that what UGC's role in the SERPs is blows over and changes? Like, do you think in 2024 we need to pay attention to this as content creators and website builders, or is it so difficult to pay attention to from our standpoint that we just wait and hope it goes away? Like, and I don't want to be too pedantic about it, but how do we wade into this conversation when it's so anti what we are doing as content creators typically?
Yeah, I mean, it's double standards as well, right? It's like if you're like a poster on Reddit, you don't have to prove any credibility, but when you post on your site, you have to prove like a bunch of stuff about yourself. It's like, how does that make sense?
I have to update my content regularly to keep it ranking, yet
exactly.
A post on Reddit from 2010 can outrank me.
So they've just rolled out, they've rolled out many things concerning UGC in terms of search features, right? So they've rolled out a new schema that allows to like tag like forums, etc., discussions. And now they've started to roll out a widget called Forums and Discussions that shows Reddit. And like, for example, for the size of like 1.2 to 1.5 single ranking, they show 3 to 4 discussions on Quora, Reddit, and other forums, basically. My guess is that this is going to be like featured snippets. So now it still happens that you have the forum discussion widget and then you have a Reddit thread ranking under, so taking even more space on the SERP, right? That's what's happening right now. My guess is it's going to go like featured snippet. For a while when featured snippet came out, you could get the featured snippet and you could also be the result under it, right? Yep. That used to be how it works. And then eventually they kind of like tidied it up. And then when you have the featured snippet, you don't rank on the SERP anymore. My guess is that's what's going to happen. Is they're going to like, they kind of like testing, they rolled out the schema so that they can like, mark it up on the SERP, so it looks nice. They're testing it right now. And eventually they'll take all the Quora, Reddit rankings, etc., put it in that widget, and then give the space back to websites, basically. So that you still have this widget popping up, similarly to people also ask, for example. But then your user, you'll be able to choose, do I want a forum discussion or do I want a website? And it's just labeled properly. And so like, it's going to be up to the user to choose what they want, basically.
That is a very interesting concept. It's almost like what they did with how-to schema, FAQ schema. They use that to build out blocks that they now feature in SERPs, right? And so you're because certainly, obviously, people appending Reddit to the end of their searches is something that is significant and Google had to pay attention to. And so they have to surface UGC to some degree, but I see the logic in what you're saying. And if that's the case, then I guess we can kind of hopefully sort of try to ignore it in how it relates.
I mean, it's still going to be on the SERPs, right? You still have these new widgets, basically. Like they will take like one position of someone in that SERP, basically. And these pop pretty often already. But it will be in its own corner, I think, eventually. It's just like, it's pretty new. Like this schema stuff is like, is 2 months old or less or something. And so like, and then this widget is like a month something old. Like it's really quite new. My guess is like by the middle of next year, this year, I guess, because this is released. This is going to be
ahead, right?
This is going to be all like kind of like, consolidated into that widget. And then you will see Reddit lose organic positions, but appear more in these widgets, basically. So they still get good traffic, but it's going to recalibrate, basically. So, but it's just a speculation that like, I can't tell you for sure that's how it's going to go, right?
Yeah.
But totally. They did this for other features, so it's like I'm just going by what they've done in the past.
Yeah. Let's start to bring it home. And I mean, you're involved on social media a bit, and you talk with a lot of site owners, and certainly throughout the weeks of reporting on the news here on the podcast, like we've kind of gathered a lot of different perspectives on this. And man, you see so many different approaches to responding to the HCU and its impact on people's websites, right? Like you talk to people who honestly have just put their head in the sand and they're like, since I don't have any clear data on what to do, I'm not going to do anything. And they're just waiting. You have people who are abandoning their websites and starting totally new projects. You have people who are going about their business as usual, hoping that something gets changed and what they used to do will just go back to working. And then you have people who are just kind of really pivoting, and whether it's going down this road of building a brand, and like adding all sorts of extra components or going into their content and completely changing it, almost like you said, like kind of doing the anti-ranking process. Like what would you be doing, or, what would you do right now if you had a big website of yours that mattered to you that had gotten hit quite a bit by the HCU or corresponding updates at the latter half of 2023? Like what would 2024 look like for you?
It's a hard one because I expect big changes in the next 6 months. Like it's like just to address the spam issues, I expect Google's going to change a lot, including addressing Parasite SEO, which I think is going to collaterally affect the big sites as well, because it's kind of similar. So like this idea of like big sites rank for everything might be different in a few months, and so that makes it quite difficult to commit to big changes. And the problem, I've seen a lot of people affected by HCU, and one good thing is like a lot of people didn't seem to have their new pages as badly affected, like when they published new content, as the ones that were hit by the update. Basically, it's almost like the site split into, the pages that were here before the update and then the new stuff, So I would take the opportunity to experiment on new pages. And try new editorial processes. As I said, like this comic book process, like looking at sites that have grown massively last year, that against the odds, like the kind of sites that I've been sharing, and then try to mimic what they've been doing. So for example, NapLab, biggest growth site I've shown you, that went from like 6,000 to 140,000 or something. Like their quantitative scoring review process is something I've been really digging into, because I think it's done really well. It's actually, I've made lessons, like we've just updated the Autorisa system, and I've just made a bunch of lessons, templates for people, etc., following a lot of these things. And it's something that we're implementing, for example, in our review process now, even though we've been doing okay. We've more or less doubled the traffic on Autorisa last year as well. Like we've done quite okay as well. But like it does, like I'm not waiting to be hit to change things up, basically, because I see how things are going. So like, yeah, if you got hit, I would say split your site into pages that got hit, pages that like new pages, and on new pages experiment significantly. Stop buying shit links as well. A lot of people buy shit links. Like, I'm sorry, but it's true. And it's like, you see these sites I showed you, they're low DR. They're not doing link building. They're DR 30s, 40s. Like it's you don't need more DR. You need a better site. And so that's what
here, but yeah.
And people often use buying links as a proxy to like, oh, I'm improving, rather than actually addressing the hard issues with their site, like the mobile experience, like the too much ads, too much everything, etc. But most importantly, clearly, I think we are in a world where websites, they're not going to get more clicks from search in the future, right? It's like with SG, with all of that, etc. We're clearly headed in a direction where websites are going to get less clicks, and it's just a fact. So I would think very hard about the business model. Like if you are an ads-based website, to me that spells trouble if traffic drops quite a bit from search, right? It's a problem. I don't think there's much you can do to make, like, unless you have incredible organic growth, which becomes quite challenging these days. I don't think there's much you can do to fight that trend. So the only thing you can do is change the business model and work on business models that make more money per visitor and don't require as many visits. And usually that is building a real business behind your site. That is selling stuff. So it's like, we are known as like affiliate people, but the truth is our model always had 3 stages, and affiliate was just stage 1 out of 3. Like when we go into like our mastermind level, like the people at the highest level, like we almost never talk about affiliate marketing. Like everyone is selling stuff or doing things on a much higher level, basically. And we have many members that do that and have done that really well. So I'll give you an example of members of the mastermind that are public about their site, so we can talk about it. The site's called coffeeness.de, but they have the English version of it as well. It's a coffee site. A lot of coffee sites got hit, but these guys tripled their traffic like in 2023. But what they've done is they actually built a subscription coffee beans business on top of their review site, and now it's becoming their main business. So while they're doing really well with SEO right now, they're kind of like preparing for the future and understand that they should take the resources that they've built up now, so that they don't just ramp up as many reviews as they can, but rather just sidestep and build a side business using that. So they've built an email list, they have an e-com part of their site, etc. Kevin is Spiritu as well, like probably the most successful member we've ever had, right? He's fully e-commerce, but like he started as an affiliate site as well. If you go on Epic Gardening, it's still very much an affiliate site when you go check it out. And so like we could talk about tactics all day, but the problem is if the core business model has a problem, tactics are not going to save you. You need to like be at the right place in the right time. And right now, website owners have been spoiled with lots of easy traffic for years. Honestly, much more than people from social media have. Yeah. And it's like maybe people got a bit too accustomed to it and adopted business models that are not sustainable in these other conditions. And it's time to like seriously start working on that in 2024, I think, for people. And we've always encouraged people to do that. Yeah.
And for those of you who are asking about e-commerce, I not that you said this, but I do love the approach you're saying about, hey, like e-commerce is just an upmarket, it's moving up the food chain. Like e-commerce brands have moved from affiliate, not saying they started that way, but instead of affiliating a product, they're directly selling a product. They are up the market from.
And you can partner with people as well, right? Like find a niche e-com in your niche and like just make a deal with them, and then just like have them white label your e-com on your site, for example, so they can take care of the whole service, etc. And then you make sales for them, and then it's almost like an affiliate program, but running as an e-com. Like in the eyes of Google, you're an e-com, and you make more money. It's like then you can use your roundup reviews to place your products. Like we have members who are like pure e-com. They've joined in H Pro. They were like they never were affiliates, right? Mm-hmm. But they've taken our affiliate templates and they write these on their e-com site and place their products. And they told me it's the highest ROI marketing they've ever done for their site. So it's kind of like the other way around for affiliates. I think if they also evolve their business model, they will eventually will be the highest ROI work they've ever done on their site. Yeah.
I was going to say, in summary, like perfect conclusion, like we almost have to undo how we look at SEO content. And we also might have to undo how we look at affiliate marketing and change the approach we take to both writing the content, but also the approach we take to the business model.
Well, it's like affiliate marketing, I think, will be fine. Look, NapLab doesn't necessarily need many visits to make lots of money. When you have products that make like high commissions, like you can absolutely build an affiliate business still today. And it's like, we talked about that mix of like building the site, building Amazon influencer program, being on YouTube, etc. You can absolutely do that. But like that might be how you elevate your business model. You become this guy who just wrote random reviews, just like Googling stuff, and that's it, to the guy who actually levels up their review process, starts a YouTube channel, and joins the Amazon influencer program and merges all of that. And that's you leveling up your business model. And that is you making more money with less traffic eventually as well, because you have all these other channels. So it's like, it doesn't mean you have to jump on e-com. I don't say that. I'm just saying the business model has to level up a little bit, whichever way you're going for doing this,
So what is coming up in 2024 at Authority Hacker, and what are you guys doing over there?
As I said, we've just updated, a lot of this work was part of me updating our member area. As I said, I keep shooting videos, etc. But it really took me a long time to get my head around what's happening with Google, because it's been very confusing, to be honest. But now we've basically built a massive list of winning sites, what's happening, tested some stuff on our sites, got some results, and then eventually now we're releasing the templates. So we've actually built full page templates for people with all the pre-designed stuff, etc., to do this quantitative scoring for roundup reviews, to do all of that, etc. We've also made lessons to help you build a quantitative scoring review system if you're doing reviews. We've even made ChatGPT prompts and custom GPTs that help you build that system with you, actually. So we built a bunch of like cool stuff for that. It's like, I'm pretty happy with that. After that, we are actually looking. So as I said, we got quite lucky selling a bunch of sites before that update, and focusing on Authority Hacker that has been growing. But we know we are going to jump back in and we're going to pick up some new projects. So right now we're actually working on like picking what the next projects will be. There's a chance we'll actually work on brandsnap.ai. So we released that free AI tool last year.
I remember that.
Yeah, it helps you just find a domain name, right? It's like just say what your business is. It helps you find an available domain name using AI. And it worked pretty well, actually. People still use it. And so we're thinking of like spinning it up into its own like small business. And actually that would be also affiliate driven, but it would be maybe a bit more interactive than just a pure review site, you know? And so like that's one of the projects we're looking at. And we have another project that we're looking at as well. We have some partnerships with some companies as well. And then Authority Hacker, well, the rest of the training, it will really depend what Google throws at us. What I'm really big on right now is Notion, actually. Like we're really big on execution. It's like SEO is very much an execution game at this point. It's like it's been figured out how to do stuff, although it needs to be refigured out. But the game is now getting like a team of people doing this in an efficient way and outputting high quality work at scale, which is the biggest challenge of SEO. And so I got really, really, really into Notion. I don't know if you've ever played with that, but it's kind of like a sandbox tool. And it's like I built crazy databases with API connections and grabbing data everywhere, and like it's pretty cool. And so I think my next training on Authority Hacker will be this kind of like advanced content system mixed with some AI stuff, I think, and showing where to use AI not to make shit content, which most people do. Most people just want their one-click article writer. That's not how we use AI. But there's still big efficiencies that can be achieved through it. So yeah, that's pretty much what's coming up. And yeah, if you want to check the update, check authorityhacker.com/system.
And we'll get that link in the show notes. I was going to say, you guys are always updating that, and I know have a promotion coming up. So thank you for coming on today. We could have talked. We could have done at least 3 hours. We didn't talk about AI. We didn't talk about content creation. We didn't talk about efficiencies. These are all things I know you guys are good
Maybe
at.
I'll come back, you know.
I was going to say, we'll have to do it again. We'll have to make it a part 2 here. Hey, thanks for coming on. Wading into this topic of the really fastly shifting landscape we're under right now is not an easy topic. Yeah, it's not an easy one to address. And I told you beforehand, like I really wanted to have you on to discuss this topic. And so we made it happen here.
I hope it was valuable for people. Like, I just hope, like, it's like I'm trying to like I don't want to be the guy who repeats what you read on Twitter. You know, it's like I like to do my own research and test things, and after that come out. So I hope this was useful.
Well, it's going to be well timed going into 2024, and again, Gael and Mark do a fantastic job on their podcast. If it's not part of your listen, your weekly listen, then you should go over there and check it out, their podcast. But they have a lot of other things, including their trainings and their courses. So, Gael, thanks for coming on. Good luck in 2024, and we'll see you around.
All right. Thank you.
Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a crazy campaign. How to Sleep on Your Back. This campaign got us links in Huffington Post, Glamour magazine, Mirror, and lots of other great news publications. Let me show you how we've done it. It was so simple. Our sleep client provided us with expert commentary about how to train yourself to fall asleep on your back. They also gave advice on why it's best to sleep on your back. Once we've had this information, we went to Muckrack and searched for journalists that consistently write about sleep and well-being. We've sent these journalists the advice provided by the client, and within 1 day the links started flowing in. Glamour magazine, a DR81 website, picked it up. Huffington Post, DR88, Mirror UK, DR90, a massive avalanche of links blasted to our client's website with this simple yet effective campaign about how to sleep on your back. I hope this inspires, and I hope you'll use this technique to land massive links to your or your client's website.
Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Just a final reminder that it was brought to you by Search Intelligence. And if you're looking for link building PR campaigns for your website, just head over to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today. Cheers.